So, big day, everyone excited, but there's been an error in communication along the way. We were under the impression, I'm sure you've heard it from me and from other content creators today, that every single cut species was going to be returning for free in Jurassic World Evolution 3. We've just had a clarification, and that's why those videos have gone down, that it is just the base game species. That is, species that were present in Jurassic World Evolution 2 when it first launched. The DLC species are not included in the promised free updates. Now that still leaves a lot of animals. This then I believe is the animals that will be returning for free throughout the lifespan of Evolution 3. Amargasaurus, Camarasaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, Sierradactylus, Crichtonsaurus, Cryolophosaurus, Dracorex, Elasmosaurus, Europlocephalus, Kentrosaurus, confirmed to be the first to return, Leopleurodon, Maurodactylus, Majungasaurus, Nigersaurus, Uranosaurus, Polacanthus, Pentaceratops, Taurosaurus, Tylosaurus. Feels like I'm doing the Poke Rap. We're also including the deluxe edition. Hard to say for sure, then that would also include Pachyrhinosaurus, Huiyangosaurus, and Megalosaurus. That's a total of 19 species guaranteed to be returning, with sexual dimorphism and juveniles, possibly up to 22 species, depending on what they do with the deluxe edition. By my reckoning, that means that the following species aren't guarantees, or at least could potentially be resold as part of DLCs down the line. Alamosaurus, Australovenator, Archelon, Barbarodactylus, Coelophysis, Dinocyrus, Sungaripterus, Gigantoraptor, Jehalopterus, Minmi, Monolophosaurus, Nothosaurus, Sinosauropteryx, Shonisaurus, Styxosaurus, Tarbosaurus, and Wahuahuahuasaurus. That then is 17 species that could be resold down the line, or 20 if we're including the deluxe edition in this column instead. Of course, included in free updates. It isn't guaranteed that these are going to be resold, but they aren't included in the 100% returning list we see on the left-hand side. So, first things first, it is still at least half the missing species, or just under, that are guaranteed to come back in free updates. That is a plus, let's not pretend otherwise. If that was the only news we'd heard today, I think we'd be pretty happy about it. But coming off the back from the high from earlier, of course, this is going to sound like a disappointment. And I can really only apologise for my part in that personally. Of course, there's nothing malicious from either side. I very much believe that to be the case, otherwise I wouldn't have said it. I think the way things were phrased at certain points maybe sent us in the wrong direction accidentally. So it was all an accident, it was all a mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened, so I do apologise because I'm sure this will now come as a disappointment to some people. And I personally am a little hesitant as to where I stand in all of this, and it's going to very much depend on what happens next. It's too early for me personally to grab a pitchfork and a torch until we see these decisions in action. And I absolutely concede that re-adding the past species takes more work than usual, given we need that sexual dimorphism, given we need juveniles, and all the new animation work that comes with that. That's 2 new social animations per dinosaur. That's really where most of the work is going to be. That takes a lot of time and effort. That said, I am pretty uncomfortable with the notion of people having to buy a species for the second time, or third time if it's Huiyangosaurus. It isn't cool in the deluxe edition for either game, it's very uncool in the secret species pack. For me, assuming these species or some of them are going to be resold, it has to be done in a clever sort of way, I suppose. For me, the best way to do that, justifiably, would be resell them as an extra species to a DLC pack. A species pack in Jurassic World Evolution 2 typically contained 4 dinosaurs. Maybe it can now contain 5 instead. I think if they went that route without charging more in the process, people might stomach it a little better. But this really is something for you alone to judge on a per person basis. Some people won't mind this at all. It's good news, we're getting some of these creatures back for free, fantastic. And some people will really not be okay with it. I really think both sides are pretty justified in how they're feeling. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here. It's good and bad. It's very much a grey situation at this point in time, and a wait and see situation. We do have to acknowledge there's a lot of work going into giving those 19-ish species for free. They're not simply brought over, of course, and of course there's also potential for more of those Deinonychus style remakes. As I say, I think if this had been announced on its own, it would be seen as positive news, and I do think I need to try to frame it in that light and then just keep an eye out, basically. See what happens next. There's no guarantees they'll all become back and sold. There's no guarantees of anything right now, really, other than those 19 species returning in free updates, starting with Kentrosaurus, as I say. I think there has to be an awareness that, yes, we need to make money, we're a company, you know, we have people to pay, we have people to feed, etc. We need to pay our employees, we need to make profit, that's how a business works. But on the other hand, goodwill is valuable in and of itself, and the community reaction and the community perception of the game and your company has value as well. So I hope whatever happens next, it's done in a way that's very aware of that and that we don't feel nickel and dimed. Because even as someone who doesn't pay for these DLCs, I found the Secret Species Pack to be pretty abhorrent and pretty unjustifiable. And that might in part just because I'm becoming more and more anti-capitalist with age. But the point is, I really didn't like the feeling that people were being nickel and dimed. And I said just as much at the time, and I will always do so if I feel that is the case. So that's the news as we know it. I will let you know if anything changes. Let's wait and see what happens. Of course, feel free to react however you feel is right, but please be cordial to each other. People are going to be on two very different sides of this debate. And it's important that we at least remain civil in those discussions, because I do think both sides are pretty justified in feeling happy or discouraged. Let me know where you fall, I suppose, on the line, and yeah, I'll talk to you all very soon as I know anything else. Thanks for joining me. Cheers much as always. Apologies again. Bye-bye.
Road.